Hello, this is Father Andrew. I'm the church planting vicar here at the Darke County Anglican Church. Um, and I'm answering some questions from our backlog. And so, question number 3 is Anglicanism and social justice. What is the church's involvement in issues like poverty and human rights? Well, that's a really good question. Um, Throughout Christianity's history, the church and the clergy have always been called to be the lead participants in a congregation serving the poor. Serving the poor has always been an important part of Christianity's heritage and life. And so when Anglicanism first formed, um, they took on some of the things that the Roman Church had been doing, which were things like encouraging its wealthier members to give alms to the poor, soup kitchens and opportunities for people to come and find nutritious food. Um, and so that has continued into our modern day. You will see that there are Anglican churches that, participate in food ministries, or maybe they participate in ministries to help people, learn how to do a job interview or get the clothes they need for a job interview, really to help those invisible neighbors around us who don't get enough to eat or struggle with employment and those sorts of things. Now, the Anglican Church, of course, is split between its liberals and its conservatives. And so, uh, on the liberal end, these churches have gotten so invested in these questions of justice that they have made that the gospel. And they're like, the gospel isn't the salvation of sin and the restoring of human souls. The gospel is the restoring of human societies through the work of social justice. And on the other hand, you'll have more evangelically minded Anglicans who sometimes will fall in the trap of saying the gospel is the only thing, the only business of the church, and things like social justice, that belongs to somebody else to worry about. And I think both those things are out of balance, that we are called to proclaim salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, accomplished by Christ alone on the cross, and that sets men's hearts free. It also makes the spiritually poor rich again. And so when we do justice ministry and we make the physically poor, we help them on their road to financial independence or having enough nutrients. We do on earth what is going on in heaven. In heaven, God is making the soul, the spiritually impoverished well again, and the church is making the physically impoverished well again. And that is a worthy thing for even conservative minded Anglicans to participate in. And there's a bunch of things in the Old Testament that, or I'm sorry, well, obviously the Old Testament commands it, and I think the New Testament also asks it of us. And for the most part, Anglicanism has a pretty good record here of not forgetting to care for the poor. But in our division, we have definitely folks who fall on that really progressive end and care for the poor is all they do. And then we have friends who fall on the very conservative end and who are not participating in justice missions. I hope that helps answer your questions. We're not terribly unlike our neighbors in this questions. Let me tell you one little story from Anglican history, and then I'll sign off. And the story is that in the 1700s, the poverty was so bad in England that they were thinking, I'm sorry, 1800s, they thought that England would have a revolution that was going to be worse, more bloody than the French Revolution because of how bad it had gotten. And these two Anglican priests, Charles Wesley and John Wesley, went out and started preaching to the poor to accept the gospel. And in their ministry, the gospel motivated those who were converted to also reshape the society that they lived in and pull people out of poverty and these sorts of things. And it was very successful. It unfortunately, came into conflict with the priorities of the Anglican Church at that time. And so John and Charles Wesley, their movement, they died Anglican priests, but their movement ended up becoming the Methodist movement, which is basically Anglicanism with a a revivalistic view of preaching and bringing people to the Lord, and then also a strong view of social justice and how churches can participate in that. Well, that's just a little piece of Christian history. I hope that you're doing well. I hope to see you again soon. So long.